Hello, I'm Lisa Holland Nelson, and welcome to another edition of Women Mean Business, where we're going to connect you with extraordinary women doing extraordinary things. My guest today is Amanda Edwards, City Council Member at Large for the City of Houston. Amanda, welcome to Women Mean Business.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for providing this platform to tell women's stories. I appreciate that.
I'm so thrilled to have you. I don't even know where to begin with saying, what do you do? But start telling us what you do.
A little bit of everything. It's been my pleasure for the last 3 years to serve as an at-large Houston City Council member. So many people say, well, what does the at-large mean? That means I serve the tiny little district known as the entire city of Houston. And so 2.3 million, roughly 2.3 million constituents. And it's really been a fantastic time to be a public servant here in our city. We've had some major tragedies such as Harvey happen. And so to be in leadership, to have an impact in that regard has been meaningful. But also we've had a number of opportunities that I've had an opportunity to actually lead on. And so looking at, for example, our tech and innovation space, and how do we create an ecosystem that supports startups has been a question that I've really worked on pretty diligently, as well as providing more access to opportunity for, say, for example, access to capital for women and minority-owned business owners. So those are just a few of the interests among many that I've had, but it's been a tremendous time.
I want you to tell me more about both of those two things, especially Houston Exponential,
Absolutely.
which I know you're part of the driving force, and,
Yes.
you know, women, anything women. So
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Absolutely. So eons ago, it seems, back in 2016, I authored a budget amendment during the budget period because at that time I was serving as vice chair, but we were talking about various cuts that would need to be made to the budget. We had a $160 million deficit. And I wondered to myself, what are we talking about growth opportunities for our city? And so I had just started to really learn about the gaps within our ecosystem as it related to venture capital funding for our startups. And I didn't know how to fix that gap. And but I thought I had met enough of the people involved in the ecosystem that they would be able to come together as part of a task force. So I authored an amendment to create a task force for technology and innovation to create recommendations of what we could do in Houston to really bolster the startup and innovation scene here. Well, Greater Houston Partnership was also working on a similar question, and we combined our efforts with Greater Houston Partnership's efforts and with Houston Technology Center and became Houston Exponential. And so now we're convening efforts of a variety of sorts to really build that ecosystem that will support our startups. And so it's been really interesting and fascinating to watch what was once a recommendation on paper for an innovation district to having, you know, the opening or the groundbreaking, if you will, of where it will be at the Sears building and some other progress that we've made. It's been really, really exciting. In fact, the HX Venture Fund, which is a fund of funds that's been created to help the flow of venture capital funding flow in Houston, that actually just closed on $25 million at the end of the year in 2018. And so we've had some pretty significant progress that we've made. There's obviously a lot more that we can do, but the momentum is building. And I always say this, it's a time where you have all of the ingredients, the people, the players, the industries, the various parties who would be critical, but at the same time we have the same game plan in terms of how we build that ecosystem all at the same time. And so it's been a really exciting time for building this arm of our economy.
Well, I'm thrilled about it, as you can well imagine.
Yes,
you know,
I know.
The technology background. I mean, I couldn't be happier.
I had a feeling you might be, Lisa.
Well, I'm real excited at the idea of finally commercializing in Houston. We have so many brilliant innovators here.
Yes, we do.
And so many ideas and startups, and they get lured away by the venture guys.
I mean,
so the idea of bringing the money to Houston, that just is the key to everything to me.
Yeah, when I was first learning more about some of this, and I was like, you mean we just lose out? We don't even compete? And it's like, yep. And surely,
Crazy.
I mean, the fourth largest city in the country, soon to be third, could do better than, I think in 2016, one report had us at 31 in venture capital investment. So surely we could do better. So Absolutely. It's been fun to see progress.
Well, thank you so much for that effort. Now tell me about the women.
Absolutely. So one of the things that's been really, pressing on my mind, and if you notice what's happening all across the country with regard to a very huge surge for women in a variety of ways, is how do we capitalize on that here in Houston? How do we get that momentum built? And so one of the things I've been working on is trying to answer the question of how do we increase access to capital for women and minority-owned business owners, but also how do we assist those businesses in scaling up? Some of those businesses, if they were to be scaled up, could be far, higher earnings and higher yield businesses, but because they have stayed at the level that they aren't able to gain the profits that they otherwise might. And so answering those questions is something I'm really excited. We're going to be focusing on in 2019. So we'll be making a few announcements about that in the coming months. So I'm very, very excited about that. And we'll be coming up similar to what we did with Tech and Innovation, recommendations that are implementable. So not just to sit on a shelf. I don't like studies and plans to sit on shelves. I want them to be living documents that are blueprints for action. And so we're looking forward to what collaborations will take place. And one of the things I always say about Houston is it's not enough for us simply to be the most diverse city in the country in terms of just demographics or our numbers. It's important for us to solve problems that impact diverse communities, including women as well. And so this is an opportunity for us to really see progress and become a model city of what other cities could be doing to make some progress in some spaces that really need to be further along than they are today.
Well, I'm thrilled that this effort is taking place. Being a fifth-generation Houstonian, leaving for 25 years, coming back, I absolutely have loved every minute that I've been back, but every friend I have from either coast who comes to visit, no one ever wants to leave here.
Yes.
The environment is so great. The culture's so great. Our restaurant, our food is phenomenal.
Yes.
There is nothing you can't do in Houston. And if you want to make yourself crazy, you can get just as crazy here as as I did in Manhattan. I feel like my life hasn't changed so much. But back to you. I mean, you're so extraordinarily successful. Tell us about your journey getting to City Council.
Absolutely. It was not necessarily the path that everyone saw for me, but I was very passionate about a few things that I wanted to see progress on in Houston. And one of the things that was also important to me was that I be aligned with my purpose. So you know that lady named Oprah Winfrey, right? So she talks about purpose, and a lot of that actually really resonates with me in terms of making sure that you're aligning with your purpose. And for me, my purpose relates to service and empowerment of communities. I love it. I can do it I could do it nonstop, 24 hours a day, and I absolutely feel fulfilled by that. And so for me, I knew that even though I was having a very positive experience, liked my legal practice, I was a municipal finance lawyer, building hospitals and other positive things for the community, I still felt like there was more that I could do that was directly aligned with that purpose. And so I do remember telling my job that I wanted to run for city council. Of course, that was a difficult conversation to have because everyone thinks you've gone crazy. And then the people around me seeing that was a pathway for me. But I knew for myself that my purpose really tied to empowering the community. And so it was a very scary thing to do. Everybody always thinks you just kind of wake up one day and you say, oh, I'm running. And then, you're off to the races, and it's not quite that way. You have to figure it out. It's an amorphous space. And so had to learn, as we call it, building a plane as you fly it. It's an uncomfortable phenomenon, but nevertheless, it was one that worked out well for me. I ran for my first race at large. It was tough, but I'm glad that I ran in an at-large position because it allows me to focus on some pretty significant citywide issues. And so Harvey, I've been able to focus there. Our city finances have had challenges, and so there's been a lot of attention there. And then, of course, looking at some of the things that we can do to make Houston the place where the Gulf Coast and the world's future meet. So that's my mission in my office, is to really to achieve that goal, which is very very lofty and large, but I think Houstonians deserve their leaders to think that way and deserve to have this optimism about not just the crises in front of us, but the opportunities that may exist that we're not even aware of. And so always looking for what those possibilities are has been a driving force in my service. So it's been fun. It doesn't mean it doesn't come without challenges, Lisa.
Well, I know you've got a re-election campaign coming up. How are you feeling about that?
Well, it's hard to tell when you have that because, of course, you don't know who's at least in Houston, we don't know who's technically in the race or who has filed until the filing deadline of August. And so it's very late in the year when we find out. So it certainly doesn't lead for a boring time, I will say that. But, it shouldn't be the time where you're first starting to see your residents or your constituents. With me, one of the things that's really important is that I have a relationship with my residents. And even though I say my residents and I'm talking about 2.3 million people, that's how I feel about them. I feel like it's my responsibility to know what's going on in all the communities and to be able to be responsive not only to their needs, but then be a collaborator on opportunities that may exist for them. And so I take that piece very, very seriously. And so, of course, campaigning, of course, adds to that. But if you have a relationship in your community, I think everybody's better served that way.
Yeah, you're going to get to hang out with your constituents, which I think they're going to love, the opportunity to get closer to you. Wow. So, Amanda, none of this was easy. I think one of the biggest questions I love to ask, what is your secret sauce? I mean, what would you tell somebody else who wants to achieve this kind of success?
I think the secret is you've got to just be willing to confront fear. I think that is one of the number one impediments to people achieving their potential is that they're unwilling to confront fear. And once you realize that you didn't die when you confronted that fear like you thought you might, and you were then able to get past it, it is a very liberating experience. And I would say that is what tends to limit people. And I oftentimes tell people you're only limited by your own imagination. And so if you have a limited imagination, then guess what? Your experiences will be limited. But if you dream big and boldly, you can work hard and achieve those goals. Now, it doesn't mean that everything you see with people who have had success, you see the everyday. People have no idea, the hours that people keep and all the things that's required in the sausage making process. But if the end goal is in your heart, it's in your spirit, you can work through pretty much anything to achieve it. And I would say just dream big and be willing to do the work necessary and understand that it's never promised to you to have a smooth path, not to allow a few bumps and bruises along the way to deter you from those goals if they're really in your heart.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
There you have it, another extraordinary woman doing extraordinary things. I'm Lisa Holland Nelson, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Astounds, and we'll be back again next week with another edition of Women Mean Business.